Well, welcome to the connoisseurs of anime, manga out there, the waifu lovers, the otaku friends that are out there, those who like isekai and all the other, hentai and all that. Welcome to this special edition of Otaku Thursday, right here on YouTube and Rumble. Yeah, at 6 p.m. Eastern. This is a special end of the summer edition. And basically, it is a look back to basically, and a little bit ahead to what is came before. What happened during the summer. There's so much, and we discussed it in the other video in the Man with the Show. Some of it, with the payment processors, the situations that are going on, in Australia, the online safety bills and stuff like that, that basically are putting a hamper to that point. And we're going to go a little bit over this, but before we get into this, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to drop a comment, a like, share, and most of all, very important, there's that subscribe button. Hit it right now. Those of you who are fans of in the anime manga world, hit it right now. Very important. Because there are those who want to get rid of us. There are those who are calling us, evil and disgusting, vile degenerates. Yeah, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're being called vile degenerates by those, especially those at Collective Shout, because they don't care whether the content is legal or not. They want it gone. These are the new Puritans, ladies and gentlemen. These are the new Puritans out there that want to destroy freedom of speech. And they don't care how they do it. They want to, scorch and burn everything to that point. So by you out there engaging on our channel, if you like the product that we give you out there, engage with us and do hit that subscribe. Very important. And also, do hit the subscribe button on the Sci-Fi Snob channel as well. His show is on Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. Wednesdays, of course, obviously, that's the Babylon 5 retrospective. I'll be on in a couple weeks. And that's 11 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday night on YouTube, and I believe he's starting out on Rumble. Tough Lofty Lounge every Sunday night on Sci-Fi Snobs channel, 11 p.m. Eastern on the same networks. Also, check out Sci-Fi for Me, Jason over there. Give him a hello and hit the subscribe there. He's got some great shows, great guests on his channel on a daily basis onto there. Go over there, give them some love to that point, and we thank you for those up on there. Don't forget shopcuticast.com. The gear shops on there. We have t-shirts, everything, mugs on there. Great portions of all sales is to help generate this channel improvement to that. So if you want to do that, also in the description below, you have also the ability, because we don't do super chats as of yet, we're still fighting to get there. If you want to leave a bit of a donation, coffee or something like that, the link is below. We're working on a second payment processor, because I know some people don't like to give to PayPal in itself, but we're working on a second payment processor. Hopefully we'll get that up soon than later. So once again, thank you on there. Check out the description below. So let's start off. The way the summer started. How did we start? On there? Well, before we hit June, we had discussed about SB 20 over in Texas, that it has passed. As of right now, September 4th, it is in effect. And what do I mean by that? Well, from understanding to the way it's written, is that basically certain anime, certain manga certain cartoons, certain artwork, certain comic books. This is not limited only to Japan. This is cross the board, would be banned in Texas. And that includes episodes of The Simpsons, Family Guy, uh, Big Mouth, comic books out of Marvel, DC, stuff from Crunchyroll over at Sony, Sentai, which is, has High Dive. A lot of the industry is in Texas. What are we going to do right now to that point? And the thing is that you got to remember one thing. This has been tried before. And, it's been worded differently. And the Supreme Court has stepped in and says it's totally illegal. This law violates SCOTUS rulings. Now we're waiting, and I guess we're waiting on basically a lawsuit to happen to that point. And, you have those on this side of the world and over on the other side that are fighting to basically keep this industry alive. But besides that, from within too, and we'll come back to SB 20. We have situations with Crunchyroll, and we discussed this to the point that Crunchyroll, High Dive, all the, Sony, Netflix, Pluto TV, and all the rest are in the middle of, licensing more. Because as of recent, and we discussed this before, that, at one point, Crunchyroll was controlling 75% of all anime. And the thing is that now you have Netflix that have moved up into that parameter that they're on top of Crunchyroll. Because when you look to the perspective of who's watching what, when, how, why, which series onto there, you're seeing Netflix have a better advantage over Crunchyroll. I think it's, what is it, Netflix, Crunchyroll, then everybody else, Hulu, and everybody else. For the reason is that Netflix has been fighting for better licensing. I mean, you can see a lot of stuff on Netflix right now. There's a lot of anime on there. And, and of course, Crunchyroll, of course, doing a bit of a, what do they call it, tantrum, decides to, back in June, they decided that certain series didn't get full advertisement, like Don the Don Don, Free Ren, a couple of the other series that, you get to the point that, just burn it all, if we can't make money off of it. Well, that's not the way to do it. It's called competition for a reason. It's called, to the point where if you're going to compete with others, you got to play good. Yeah, okay, you're going to play a little dirty every once in a while, but, it's to the point that anime and manga needs more respect, especially out of Hollywood, which we discussed on another episode, that basically Hollywood treats anime as a cheap alternative to filmmaking. The one thing I have always said is let Japan make their anime. Hollywood should not get involved to this point. Even in the live action stuff. I know they said, well, we can make a good live action movie. What have you made? About 2 or 3 that have worked out of the dozens of others that literally have crapped out? Shall we talk about the Dragon Ball movie? Or basically some of the other, I mean, the Death Note series, which the only thing good was the Roku was the only thing on there. One character because the voice was great because it was played by William Dafoe. Okay, you have on to that. Cowboy Bebop. Oh God, horrendous that was. And of course, all the movies up and down that just basically they try to put out, hit and miss. You have Battle Angel Alita, which did very well for itself, but you're not going to beat it out because you have this point that anime in itself, they try to make live action out of it and everything, and Warner has already dropped the rights to Akira. So that's up for grabs, and I hope they're not going to make that. I mean, that of all the films to try to make, I mean, next to Ghost in the Shell, you have, Akira. That's something is, how can I put it, CGI driven and background driven. And that was the problem with Ghost in the Shell. They didn't have the backgrounds right. They tried to recreate the backgrounds, and the cinematography wasn't right. The backgrounds weren't right. They just, they didn't watch the movie. They didn't. They must have glossed over it and didn't pay attention to how it was drawn, how it was looked at. The feel, the look, because that was what makes all these series popular, all these movies popular. You have to the point that, how can we put this? It's a situation. The art itself, very difficult to replicate into a live action. If you've not seen Akira, take a moment, go watch it. Go watch Ghost in the Shell. Look at how... Don't look at to the perspective of the action, the storyline. Sit back and watch the movie go by. In fact, don't even turn on the volume. Turn the volume off. And sit back and watch it. At the end of every episode of Otaku Thursday, we always say, taste it, smell it, touch it like a fine wine. Take that moment and do that. And you'll see the differences. Match it up to live action, Ghost in the Shell. And you'll see the differences and the reason why it didn't work out well. Not only did the story, the scripting was, not great, and they didn't go by what the story was. Both these stories are talking about evolution. They don't realize to that point. Akira is they had the power. They're changing. They're evolving to the point that the government was doing this, not realizing that, yes, they were creating a monster, but also they were advancing humanity itself, and they'll realize it was out of control. It was like in Babylon 5 when they had the Deathwalker episode where she was offering immortality, but it was at a price that other people had to die to the situation. And she says, you'll be fighting for it, you'll be praising me and all this. And she leaves on the ship. Meanwhile, a Volon ship shows up and blows it up. And there's Kosh, the Volon, and it says, you're not ready for it. And that's the same thing here with Akira. Mankind's not ready to evolve yet. You're pushing the limits too soon. Ghost in the Shell, you're at that point. You've moved on from flesh to machine, but in a way that your ghost, which they consider like, the soul, you're able to move that point. Or is it just an element, just a copy of yourself? Which, we're seeing that in the, play out in the Alien TV series right now also. Wendy and then, the Lost Boys, what they created, that they transferred their essences into these bodies, but it's supposed to be themselves, but is it themselves or is it a carbon copy? And that's some things you have to ask yourself. And it's the same thing with Ghost in the Shell. And that's the thing that's really truly missing from the live action movie. Can they do something like this for a live action Akira? No, they can't. Because the way they'll talk, they won't read the comics, they won't watch the movie. Excuse me, the manga. They won't read the manga. They won't They won't look at the movie. They just gloss over things. And that's the problem with Hollywood. And this is why they basically got to the point that this is what is going to happen. And like I said, anime needs to stay in Japan. And when I'm talking about production wise, for those of you out there in production houses that are trying to, even in Netflix, if you're trying to copy and claim that it's anime, stop doing it. Why? Why should they stop doing it? Because it's an art form from somewhere else. You can't recreate a Van Gogh. You can't recreate a Picasso. You could try your best, try to make a carbon copy of it, but it's not a Picasso. It's not a Van Gogh. It's not any of these artists. Why copy it? Make your own. There was a time, let me tell you something, there was a time in the U.S. the animation was fantastic here. I mean, Razor Fist points out Heavy Metal, which I just got the 4K version of it on Blu-ray. And that's well animated. And then, of course, the other thing I got, recently on the Blu-ray version is the Bashki Lord of the Rings, which is like the new remastered on there. It looks good. And that's a good animation too. That Wizards, Fritz the Cat, that type of animation. And then of course, you got the Family Guy, you got the Futurama, you got King of the Hill. King of the Hill, from animation point, was pretty good. There are certain little elements that I didn't like for there, and we are getting another season of that. But you can see that we do have animation. And another way to go is look at the animation over at Tubi TV. There are a couple of series that they have that, okay, the animation is not 100% great, but it's not too bad. And then there were other shows, forget about it. What was wrong with the animation on that? There was no problem with that. Stay with that. Reboot was another one. They just did a documentary on them. Was really well animated. And there were a lot of American titles that were done. Some of it was animated out of Korea, but some of the design styles were created right here in the U.S. And I think that's what the West should. The West should go back on it. They had a good animation point in the U.S., but basically they just gave up on it. They just gave up. That's all they did. They just gave up on it. Then later on they came back with the stupidity of some of this Cal Arts and shit like that bullshit that came out for a while. I mean, look at all the Disney, the stuff, Snow White, Peter Pan, all that. Then Lion King, Aladdin, all those movies that they made, prior to Disney going completely woke. They could go back to that. Why do they need Japanese anime? Let Japanese anime do the stuff they do. And the thing is, you have the people out there criticizing it. Groups like Collective Shout. You have the Visa, MasterCard payment processors out there. The fight with that's going on currently right now. And, you have groups that are just like sitting. I mean, Katakawa is calling out payment processors in Japan for doing what they're doing. Because, you had the Nico Nico situation and a couple of other sites that, had to bend the knee. They either had to remove the content or go out of business. And the thing about it is, they made it sound like it's illegal. But it's not. It's not illegal. What they're doing in the anime world, whether it's hentai, whether it's lolly, whether anything, they're not illegal. They're not illegal. Even in the United States, according to the SCOTUS, it's not against the law. It's not in the obscene line. It's because people calls it obscene. It says, well, they're obscene. Look at all the porn. There are people out there. I mean, even in Crunchyroll, people who work for Sony and Funimations. That when Funimations, they transferred into Crunchyroll, they said, well, that's porn. Which one are you talking that are porn? You have stuff that are okay, borderline nudity, sexy, your magic, uh, gushing magical schoolgirls, high school DxD, redo the healer, to the point, and you say to yourself, those are just like, questionable. They're not questionable, they're stories. Some are made by women. Some are enjoyed by women. Because they always say, like, well, because we talked about that Vice News video article that they put out, that they try to chastise an anime convention in Japan. And they're like saying, oh, look at all the pedos over here. But the thing about it is that they went out and found some guys that were like, questionable pedos. But still, they're like, well, this is not what turned me into a pedo. They said, that basically I had my problems. They tried to get them to say, yeah, anime was the problem, wasn't it? Or the manga. Throughout the summer we discussed this to the point, and we always keep maintaining this. And, you have different levels. One thing about anime and manga, and I've always said this, there's something for everyone, from kids to adults. Those who, they're looking for a little bit of, a little cheeky to the side, or you want an adventure. There's some stuff on there. And I've mentioned some great stuff out there. I mean, there's some cooking stuff that's really good. There's stuff about farming, golf, sports. There's a lot of action adventure. And they say that, well, dude, it's porn. No, it's not. It's not. Get it in your heads. It's not. If you don't like the situation, you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to read it. You don't have to buy the videos. It's funny. And I look back at this from my point of view from when I was growing up. And back when I was a kid, other than what was on broadcast television, which was like Gigantor, Speed Racer, there was a couple of series on there, Galaxy Express 39, Battle of the Planets, and stuff like that. A lot of the other stuff was pretty much underground. You had to go to Chinatown. This is, and we're talking prior to the internet. We're talking 70s into the 80s. Manga itself wasn't translated. You'd be lucky, you would have to get something to you would have to learn Japanese just to read one. Until they started to figure out that, basically let's start printing these in English. And the other stuff, you're spending $25 on this, $50 on that. Even at the beginning of the VHS industry and then the DVD industry, to the point that, we were made fun of. Back when I was a kid, Nerd! I was made fun of constantly and said, what are you watching these cartoons? These crazy cartoons from Japan. It's the same thing like with Doctor Who. They say, you're watching that crazy Doctor whatever, to that point. But I mean, you could say all pop culture people, whether you're Star Wars fans, Star Trek fans, anime fans, gaming fans, board gaming, Dungeons and Dragons, we were all ridiculed back in the day. Then it came forward to that point where people, where you had the fake people, that the fake fans, and we're talking about this even today, 2025, that there are fake fans out there. They said, oh, we've been watching this for a long time. We know that. And, you ask them some questions. Hey, listen, I'm not great on a lot of the answers to certain series and stuff like that, and some things I might forget, but I remember a lot of the old stuff. You'll ask questions to them. They know nothing of the series. They know nothing of the characters. They know nothing of the history of it. And basically, they're fake. Even right here on YouTube, there are channels, there are creators that use the anime industry to make money. That they're fake anime channels. That literally they talk about anime and stuff like that, but they're not real channels. I mean, they've been, there are channels out there that that are really good. Mother's Basement, Otako. I think what was the other one? Otako something. Of course, Ghibli reviews. Many others who are really good content creators, but they're hampered because you have those out there that have thousands or a million or two subscribers because they do some crazy stuff. Not knowing that basically you have those out there that talk about this on a daily basis. Mother's Basement, I love to watch his videos. Why? He goes into details, whether it's what he calls a dumpster fire of a show, or if it's like really, really good, or if it's really, really bad. He'll talk about it. And, his discussions are really fun. And we go in depth into the series. I'm not saying my channel is the top best in the world. I mean, there are people better than me on there, but I try to do my best when we talk about this. But again, there are those who are fake fans, and then those who don't understand the industry that criticize us. I mean, by July 10th, they signed the SB 20 into law. Like I said, it's going on right now. And, of course, I'm looking over some of the stuff. Netflix becomes the number one go-to by July 17th. It's the number one go-to for anime at that point. And then we get this sort of set of news. Crunchyroll and Netflix both confirm that subtitled watchers are in the minority these days. Now, there's a lot of answers you can say to that point. I don't know. I honestly, I could believe it. I could, to the point. I mean, you're seeing more series dubbed faster than it used to be. You used to have to wait a while for the dub version, sometimes several months. Now you're starting to see it come out a little bit more, like within either the same time it's released, like Dan 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 Dan, or 2-3 weeks, similar to like To Be a Hero X, which was like a week or two, and then they released the dubbed version of it. You may ask yourself, what do I watch? I watch both versions because I want to make sure I'm getting the best out of it, because some of the dubs, you can't trust the politics in it. You can't trust the translations because sometimes the translations are not that great. Even the subtitles are not that great either. But I'll watch it both ways. I'll go through the subtitle version and then come back and watch it in English. So, you get a double dip. I double dip onto the point. Which there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And then, of course, we're hearing from Collective Shout. We're hearing from the Australians, Julie Iman, to the point that they want to get rid of anime. They want to get rid of manga. They want to get rid of gaming. They don't care whether it's legal or not. They rather get rid of it as a total. And there are those on this side of the world are in the same agreement, because those people are misinformed to the point. I mean, even the people that, over Collective Shout, they don't know what anime is. They've never seen really a true anime to that point. And, they think that basically they pick up, someone says, well, give me the worst, the most graphic animes and stuff like that. And they say, well, here's the proof. But they've not really seen really true stuff out there. I mean, you watch Free Rent. Free Rent's a great series. Does it have controversial stuff in it? No, not at all. There's the other one is Campfire Cooking in Another World. Great series. Does it have any fan service? No, not really. Farming in Another World? here has a teensy bit of fan service, a little bit of some mature subject matters, not much, but it's a great show. It's a guy wants to farm. That he lived his life originally crippled, died, resurrected, and he told God, he says, "Listen, I want to farm. I want to work with my hands and stuff like that." And basically, that's what he did. He gave him the ability to go out and farm and created this whole new village, which basically the demon lords are all afraid of, for nothing. Which that's the funniest thing. It's like the guy sat down, he's like, there's this guy, he's got all this fruit and vegetables and stuff like that, and he's got scary people with him. Oh my God. Are they going to attack us? He took out a dragon with one hit. Go out and watch it. I mean, the sequel is coming on that. In fact, I just ordered the Blu-ray on that. Got a great price on it too. So everybody else wants like almost $50 for it. I got it for like practically half price. And and then many others, to the point. Yes, there's adult content out there. Yes, there's hentai, there's porn. Everything that has the same situation in Hollywood. I've made these comparisons before. Redo the Healer is the one that, is the biggest comparison. And I'll tell you, basically, we've talked about this before. That basically, Redo the Healer was very popular with women. Why? They like that subject matter. This is why, we talked about in the Man with a Show, the trying to crack down on gay erotica. Because they like the gay erotica. They like those stuff about, women being attacked, the situation, and then getting revenge. And that's what Redo the Healer is. Redo the Healer is a character who basically sexually assaulted, beaten, whipped, enslaved, and he reverses time and starts everything all over again. But this time, he has the knowledge of what happened to him and changes the future. Now, does that, because there's that old saying, you either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. Is he the villain now? Has he become the villain? That's the question you ask. And that's why a lot of people like that. And I made those comparisons if you look at Hollywood. Linda Blair in Savage Streets. Then you have Miss 45. I Spit on Your Grave. All versions of it. The original from the 1970s to the present day couple of the series on there. Last House on the Left. Let me see. Let me think here for a second. Dress to Kill. To that point. Body Double. These are situations when you look at the subject matter of what is going on. And you have these ones in Hollywood. Some are really popular. Some directed by big, Brian De Palma and other big directors. Others small-time products and stuff like that. Still cult classics. I ordered Galaxy of Terror on 4K. And there's a scene in there where a woman gets sexually assaulted by an insect. And you say to yourself, oh my God, wait, that's insane. Why would anyone put that on film? Why would they do something to that nature? When you hear something like that immediately in your mind, it's like Goblin Slayer. When you hear Goblin Slayer, it says, well, there's a woman that gets sexually assaulted by a goblin in the movie. Oh my God, to that point. Understand what it's about. Now, Galaxy of Terror, for those of you who have not seen this movie, and it's a great movie, gave the starting point to James Cameron. Yes, James the Abyss Cameron started in this film in the production staff. This is a great horror film with Ernie Moran from Happy Days, Joni from Happy Days, Ray Walston, Robert Englund is in this, and like I said, James Cameron is a part of this. And this is a planet where basically your fears come true. Literally comes true. Now, the insect scene in that poem is because the girl is afraid of bugs. And what this planet does, it manifests itself, it manifests your fears. It magnifies it by like 100 times over. I mean, there's a lot of scenes where people die in horrible, horrible manners in this movie. But when you watch it, you'll understand what is the plot of it when you get to the end of it. I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to give you on, go out and get it. It is available right now. I think it's less than $20. I think was it $20? 24. What did I pay for it? No, I paid $27.99 for it. I'm looking at it right now on Amazon. On there, in fact, I bought two Roger, and this is Roger Corman's movie. I bought two Roger Cormans. The other one was Battle Beyond the Stars, as well. But Galaxy of Terror, is a movie to that point where people confuse when they hear that point. Now, getting to Goblin Slayer, the anime. The reason why people freak out on that is because that one, technically, it only happens once. It doesn't really happen more than once. It almost happens again through the series, but it stopped. It doesn't go any further to the point, not like episode 1. What it is that these creatures, and these are monsters. Understand, these are not, the typical, the universal monster. The movie's resolved within the hour and a half. To the point, you don't really see what happens. To the point in this, and there was, and quote another movie called Humanoids from the Deep, where the monster is trying to procreate. And that's what these things are. These goblins in Goblin Slayer are trying to procreate. And what they do is they attack women, kidnap them, and basically, what happens. They're assaulted. Some of them die to the point on there. And, that first segment, that in the first minutes of that episode, is it rough to watch? If you can watch a horror film, you can watch. This is a little bit more tamer than a horror film. Yes, it's a cartoon with assault situations on a female character. Like I said, if you're not seeing Humanoids from the Deep, oh God, then you don't really know the situations on some of these movies. You've had other movies like Humanoids from the Deep. There's been plenty of those out there in Hollywood, and nobody really complains of them. A lot of them are cult classics. Humanoids from the Deep is a cult classic out there. And, it's always a situation of reproduction. Because, there are monsters in the world that want to reproduce and continue their line. And that's a driving thing. They're animals. They're creatures. Basically, they're going to be driven on that. But there's always the hero in Goblin Slayer who will come in to destroy these creatures. That's the whole premise of Goblin Slayer. Is you have a character, which if you watch the abridged version, it's hysterical, is that he loves to kill goblins. That's all he wants to do. There are plenty of other things, dragons and demons and stuff in the world. But he focuses on goblins. Why? Well, his backstory leads to the point where he had a sister, and I guess, what was it? The sister was killed by goblins to a point. His family was killed by goblins. And he's bent on destroying all goblins. That's why he does this. So when you see something to that nature and you hear that. The other is that, you hear something like, what was that? Rise of the Shield Hero, where you hear it, he says, well, he was accused of sexually assaulting a woman. Oh my God, he assaulted a woman in there. And then there's slavery going on in this series. That basically he buys a slave. Well, watch the story again. Shield Hero, the assault situation was a lie. For those, I'm sorry, throw that out at you if you hadn't seen it yet in season one. Was a princess that basically she was a liar, a manipulator. That's what she was, and she still is. She's still in the series now, and she's still doing what she does. The evil stuff. I mean, what do they call her, bitch or trash situation? Now they called her because after she was deposed by the queen and kicked out of the kingdom, that basically this is someone who manipulate people on there, and she tried to manipulate the Shield hero, steal his money, and then accuse him of this. Now, the slavery part. Okay, understand this. And this is one thing that anime has been slammed for, is the slavery issues on many animes, especially a lot of stuff that's isekai. Understand this. The isekais, you die, you get resurrected into a fantasy world. This is a fantasy world. This is a world where basically slavery does exist. He said, well, we don't need to put that in the story. Sure we do. Sure we do. We can't sit there and not acknowledge it, that it doesn't happen, that it does or doesn't happen. He said, well, it doesn't have to be part of the storyline. Sure it does. Because it basically, you can't really have... I mean, they tried doing it in certain series. They tried doing it in certain things that they brought out recently, in certain movies, certain series. And it didn't work out well because it's like, well, how do they do this? How do they do that? It has nothing to do with the color of the skin. It has nothing to do... Is that there are characters that are basically... that is not well off. I mean, you in the case of Shield Hero, is you had Rafaela, that she was a child that was thrown into slavery, and Mifune, is it Mifune? I think it is. He saved her, and they're sort of very close at this point. Yes, she's his slave in a way, but he doesn't treat her that way. He doesn't say, "Go fetch me a cup of beer," or "Get my food, woman." No, he doesn't treat. He treats her equally as someone would treat someone well into that period. Yes, you will see other characters that are enslaved on there, and he tries to free them to that point. And there are other series similar to that point. What was that other series? Yeah, Death March to a Parallel World. That one, nobody really talked about that one. And basically, the character on there had several slaves to the point. And literally, as far as that, he treats them equally. But as a slave, they continue to be slaves to him. And... he had a collection. What was it? 5 or 6 girls. One of the characters in that series is a reincarnated from his world, from Japan. And I guess she was an adult, and then she was reincarnated as a child. And what happened was she ended up in a monarchy. The monarchy was deposed. And she ended up in a slave, and she was sold, and her age is very young. And there's a scene, people will question it, but there is a scene in it where she tries to, as they say, satisfy her master. But the thing about it is, he doesn't want nothing of it. He says, the word was, I'm not no pedophile or anything to that nature. And the thing about it is that she has the ability to manipulate the mind and all that. But immediately he says, stop what you're doing, remove the spell, and move away. And, he tries to explain to her, she says, you can't do this stuff anymore. You can't do that. I mean, there are a couple of jokes she makes. Oh, you're into that? It's kind of makes kind of a levity to the situation. But like Mushiko Tensei, her mind is an adult mind. So, but you're going to have characters to that point. Now, does this happen a lot in anime? No, it does not. It does not happen a lot in anime to this point. But you do get it every once in a while, and you might freak out about it. But you know, what is it? Color Me Yellow, Curiosity Yellow was out there, and of course the infamous two versions of it, Lolita, and many other films similar to that nature that are out there. These are stories. Take it to the grant that these are stories. Yes, they can be explicit. Yes, they can show the horrors of life in a world. Things are not easy. People put to the perspective that they judge these things by the way we live today. It was a different time period back then. And these stories show, yeah, nothing was simple. Nothing was easy. Don't watch the movie. Go out, read Shogun. Great novel, James Clavell. Go read that. And that shows you in a way how life was in Japan back then. And there are many other stories you can read about. What's the other one? Fanny Hill, which it's a little bit sexualized, but things like that happened there. The movie Caligula. Go through the history of Caligula. Yes, that happened. Crazy stuff like that happened back then. When they say the Roman orgy. Yes, those things happened. To this day, understand, to this day, there are those in the Mideast and China and other parts of the world that marry young children. That older men marry children. That basically you have families that sell off their daughters to other families that either they're both young or the male counterpart is an adult. And this happens constantly, even to this day. And you say, well, that's disgusting. Yeah, I agree with you. It is disgusting. Does it belong in a storyline? Yeah, we can have it in stories on that. In reality, no. That's something that we need to eliminate eventually down the line, but we can't do it, just like that with a snap of a finger. That's going to be something that, to that point. But like I said, this is the thought pattern of a lot of these people, that they don't watch these series. They'll sit back and criticize you and throw up their agendas. You right now, and I'm still trying to figure this one out. And I know a lot of other people with the SB20 law. There's a company called JAST USA. We had San Japan in Texas just recently. I think a week ago. There was a visual novel publisher, JAST USA, that they were banned from exhibition and they already paid for their tables and stuff like that. This was prior to September 1st that they were banned. That basically the Friday prior, they were removed from the show floor. While it wasn't made clear why, but you could think about that, to that point. I mean, it has adult-oriented catalog. Okay, it's adult-oriented. They had a section at San Japan for that stuff, which is generally closed in. It's not something that's out in the open. That basically they have it cordoned off, with panels and stuff like that, and you walk in. It's sort of like the old days of the video store. The adult section was behind a door or another floor. Like I used to manage a video store back in my day, and the porn section was downstairs next to the horror. Believe it or not, it was next to the horror and sci-fi section. They put the horror and sci-fi section together with the porn section, and it was downstairs. So basically, you didn't have the kids go down there really because basically it's sci-fi and horror, and the porn could be in there. The kids section was up top, was on the main floor, so you did not have that together. But in this case, at this convention, they had an area specific for this type of merch. And this particular company was banned. Was it banned for this? No one's talking. No one's really talking. Not even the as far as when we looked this up, not even the organizers talked about this. Now, what is ahead? What do we got ahead? Well, a lot more age verification, a lot more anime bans, anime releases, manga releases, talks about censorship. There's a lot coming very soon on there. We're working on a lot of stories. Another thing that's by the time this hits, we should be close to the release of Demon Slayer Infinity Castle right here in the United States. As of right now, I'm going to look up, let me tell you, while we're here, I'm going to look it up. This is the 4th of September, and we're going to look up their box office. And then we did this toward the afternoon. Let's see, there's been a change on there. Let's see. That's interesting. Give me 1 second here. There's an error. Okay, according to Twisted Vox, Demon Slayer surpasses 300 million worldwide, and we're not even at as officially as of. Let's see, when was this article put out? Actually, September 1st. As of September 1st, worldwide, it's officially crossed the 300 million mark globally. And that is before kicking into the West. The film could hit 500 million. That's $500 million by the time it releases in the US, Europe, and Latin America. And that's something we're going to be watching on very soon as we get into the new. And we'll say at this point, before we go, obviously drop a comment, like, share, subscribe. Very important on there. We will be back. And you ask yourself, when are you coming back? We will be back with Taco Thursdays. We'll have a couple shorts in between here and there. But the full show will return October 2nd. Now, the reason we've done that, we're working on Man with the Show. We're working on live streams and stuff like that. We plan to do a live stream for our Taco Thursday eventually with some guests. We're working on that. Right now, we're focusing on trying to get the content out for Man with the Show and trying to get the live streams up and running. We're just testing the software. We were between several companies. We're going to go with Restream for right now. So basically, we're going to go with that. So like I said, we're testing it out. We'll be doing live testing soon. You'll probably see it online. So if you want, stop by, say hello, give a click on there. It won't last long. We'll be on there for about maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half hour, depending on, if I can get someone to work with me on it. We'll probably maybe be on there longer. But like I said, we'll be back on the 2nd. Man with the Show will be returning on the 15th of September. So do watch for that. So do check us out on that. Don't forget to check out Sci-Fi Snobs daily. The Babylon 5 retrospective every Wednesday, 11 p.m. Eastern. Top Lofty Lounge Sunday night, 11 p.m. Eastern. Sci-Fi for Me. Do check out his site also. He has daily episodes live on his channel. So, as I said before, October 2nd, return of Taco Thursday. Do check it out, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube and Rumble. So as we always say, take in some manga, take in some anime, treat it like a fine wine, open it up, smell it, taste it, touch it, enjoy it. Until next time when we see you on again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you when we return on October 2nd. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for watching, commenting, and sharing this video. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe, as this helps the reach of this channel. Finally, as a content viewer, you have the ability to help support this channel, as new internet laws around the world will diminish our reach and affect our sponsors. If you choose to help, there are 2 ways, listed in the description below. The first link will lead you to a pay site where you can make a monetary donation. The second will lead you to our gear shop, where you can buy shirts, mugs, and other gear. Discounts will be listed on the site. Once again, thank you for watching and your support.